hands in my chest. It's growing larger with every breath I take. When I fight it, I hide it, it takes me down. Yeah, I know we created a mess. It's growing bigger with every choice we make. Yeah, we're here, we keep coming around. The more it itches, the higher we go, the harder we fall in and out of love. We should burn those bridges, never look back, but in the end we lose ourselves again. Together. Together.
All right, so let's begin the fun. So I am not sure if I can be heard easily, because I have no idea if the sound is configured correctly, but I guess we'll see. Okay, so what I plan on doing today is create an app called Gembird, which is quite obviously a play on Peter's name and the Gemini protocol name. So let's begin by explaining what is Gemini. So there's this cool new internet protocol, which is heavily inspired by Gopher, and that's basically a super simple web, but it does not have the historical baggage that Gopher has, so it's like TLS by default, and it intentionally has a very limited set of features, so that we don't end up with websites that take up your entire take up all your resources just to run. So yeah, I had fun browsing through this, and the specification of the protocol is quite nice because it's really simple, it's really short. This browser I'm using is called Lagrange, like the mathematician. So it's really nice looking. So if you want to look into that, I recommend that browser. And basically the protocol has a very simple syntax. It looks like Markdown, and for user input it does not have forms, but for user input it has this magical response code called input, which basically makes the browser prompt for an input, like one line. So I guess that's enough for making a Twitter clone. So that's what I'll be doing. And what's really cool about the protocol is that it supports client certificates for authentication. So you don't have to worry about passwords, etc. Everything's encrypted with client certificates. So you can have identities based on that, and browsers often support having many identities, easily switching between them. So yeah, so we're gonna make a Twitter clone, because I believe the protocol is powerful enough to do that. And I guess it will be fun to have something like Twitter on Gemini, because I am addicted to Twitter and I would like to use more alternatives to web, and having my main addiction on there would be helpful. Yes, so Gembird, now you know why it's called a bird, because Twitter, of course. And yes, how it will work? Well, basically you would open the website, create an account. It will try to check who you are based on the client certificate your client provides. If you don't have an account already, it will ask you to create a handle. So today we'll just start by making a basic skeleton of the application. Maybe we'll get to the user authentication stuff based on the certificates. So I'll begin by launching Firefox on a clean profile made for streaming, and as I usually do, start by checking out the documentation for the framework. Yes. Oh, and also some overview. Yeah. First, we're gonna read up on how the framework works. I mean, I've seen it before. It's quite similar to all the Golang web frameworks, honestly, by having just a router and handler functions. Then we're gonna see how it handles client certificates, because I know it gives you like raw X509 certificate objects that, like, from the standard library of Golang, and we're gonna have to figure out how to do fingerprints of that, so that we can have a key to identify the users. But I've seen that the framework has some helper functions written, like some middleware for actually ensuring the certificate is there. So we're gonna have to figure out how that works, and then once all that is in place, we're gonna try to do some basic authentication. I'm not sure which is which. And yeah, for that we probably need to add something for the database access, so an ORM of some kind. Yeah, so let's start with hello world. Yes, I am using NeoVim as my editor. It can easily handle language servers. So basically everything VS Code can do. I mean, for code intelligence, it can also do, but it's light, which is nice, because currently I'm using an old X230, I think, ThinkPad. So it's a 3rd gen i5 processor. So I need all the resources I can get. I am currently waiting for a new ThinkPad T14S that's Ryzen based, so that's gonna have some more power. Okay, so first let's initialize the module. I'm gonna use my personal Git repository for this, and let's begin. So first let's make it, so actually I'm gonna have I'm gonna do some planning first. So first we're gonna do hello world, so that we can connect to it from the browser. And then we're gonna read the certificate, read user. So we're gonna figure out how to get the certificate from the user that the user wants to use. Then we're gonna have to somehow handle creating the actual user account and storing the association between the user certificate fingerprint and the user account, so the name, etc., the posts to the website. And all right, so let's do get a database. So yeah, so I guess we're gonna have to first write a model for the user, write figure yeah, so after we get the database to store the data in, we're gonna have to figure out some nice flow for the registration so that it's both simple to use for the user but also secure, because we don't have forms like in HTML. So like in web development, there's this thing called cross-site request forgery. So basically we add some hidden fields in forms which have some random tokens that allow us to protect the user from some other site sending data from their site to our site and pretending to be the user. So here we don't have any forms, we have only one field. So we're gonna have to figure out some other way to protect the user from other sites, just putting a link to, for example, the upvote button, and you would just click it and suddenly you have upvoted some post before even knowing. Or even some site could redirect you to the upvote link, and we want to make sure you cannot do that. And because of the limitations of Gemini, it's gonna need some interesting solutions, but we will talk about that when we get to it. So yeah, without further ado, yeah, so we create our router instance. As you can probably hear, I am definitely not a native speaker, so when I say router or router, I'm just gonna use random pronunciations probably, because I'm not used to a single accent, because all my knowledge comes from media online from all over the world. So that's just how it's gonna have to be. So yeah, let's do the hello world, as is tradition. Alright. And not that. We don't want to print to the console, we want to return it to the user. So this helper function on the context that we get from the framework basically sends the argument, like this text variable I'm highlighting here, with a text Gemini MIME type, so the browser knows it's like in the Gemini format, which is kind of like Markdown, and with the status code of success, so that's exactly what we want now. So let's begin with this. or even let's do hello YouTube. All right. And what did we do wrong? Okay. Yep. So now let's try building. It will fetch the dependencies. Oh, and of course we have to run it. And we're gonna have to generate a fingerprint. Not a fingerprint, a certificate, because Gemini requires TLS support by default. But the consensus, I think, among the client developers for Gemini is to do something like SSH does, Secure Shell. So you don't need a certificate that has been signed by, for example, Let's Encrypt, but you just use your self-site certificate, and on the first visit you are asked to, like, the user is asked to either trust or not the certificate, and then on subsequent visits it just works. Yeah, so let's use a different name than from the example. Honestly, I don't know, let's just do this. And let's do something else. Yeah, I guess the common name I should have... actually no, because we're not gonna have a domain right now. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter, because all the clients usually care about is the certificate itself, the fingerprint. Yep, so yeah, let's run the server. Yeah, so this will block forever, similar to HTTP listen and serve. But we're gonna do cert and cert. By default, this framework has some nice logging. So yeah, so we're gonna have some nice logs for free. And yeah, let's try with the browser. Hello YouTube. So this works. Of course, this browser looks nice, but you see it does some additional styling and stuff. Gemini has no styling by default, like there's no styling possible in the protocol, unless you of course send HTML over Gemini, which is totally possible, but I don't think you will find a client that enjoys that or even supports that. But there are also other browsers, like for example Crystal, which look, let's say they don't style stuff as much. Yeah, so yeah, that's quite basic. And there's also this nice proxy. So that's just giving you some ideas on how to look into Gemini. You can use this proxy here to just browse Gemini over the regular internet, over the regular web. You can click on the bottom link to get to the main page of Project Gemini. And as you can see, it also has some nice styling done. I took inspiration from this to make the styling for my personal website, so it can be accessed over Gemini. And if you do that, your client does the styling, but from the Gemini file, I generate the HTML, which you can see on my website, which looks quite similar to what that proxy I showed you does. And actually, this is basically the syntax of the Gemini files. So, like in Markdown, you use pound characters to do headings. Links are done by just doing this arrow thing and then the link, but we'll get to that later. Or you can just go to the Gemini.circumlunarspace website. You can also access it over HTTP and read up on the specification, because it's like really short. It's not much, and it's quite interesting. It gives me the feeling of like I never were there to witness the beginning of the internet, but this seems small enough to give me that feeling, because it's new and people are just still having fun with it, experimenting with it. Yep, so let's continue. We have this hello YouTube, so let's actually put this into Git. Sorry, Git status. What do we have? Let's do those files, and we'll also ignore the certificates, because we don't want to be publishing that anywhere for sure. And then there is some other file I didn't want there. Yes, the binary. We don't want to publish the binary, at least not in the repository. Let's get rid of that file. Okay, so and the git ignore file, and the initial commit is done. We can proceed. So we're gonna have to figure out how to read the user certificate. So as you can see, it is quite simple here. So let's try showing the user. Here in this example, we show the name of the certificate, the common name, but we're gonna extend it so that we can see the fingerprint to see how it works. Yep. So let's see, we get it. Okay. And here they return, if the certificate is not available, they return an error called status client certificate required, and that usually causes the client to show some indication that a certificate is required and maybe allow the user to generate one. Yes, so actually we're not gonna do that on the home page, but we're just experimenting right now. We probably want to move all the certificate checking stuff into our own middleware, so that we just have to get it right once and then not care and not re-implement it in each of the handlers. But for now, let's just say hello, you I know, unauthenticated user, and let's do some punctuation, why not? And okay, so if we're here, we can just access the certificates like that, and from what I've seen, this certificate is just your good old standard library X509 certificate object structure. Actually, there are no objects here in the Golang land, so we can just do this. I mean, right now I'm just rewriting the example, but we'll get to the fun stuff soon. So I'm gonna use this instead. And let's do localhost. Oh, okay, so I'm already using this certificate, as you can see by the using written here. But so it just says hello to me, so let's check that if I stop using this certificate for this page. Okay. Yep. Okay, so this works. Yes. So now let's try to do a hash. What can I use? SHA-512, because why not? It's big. Should be enough for some time. So let's see how that, what's the signature of that. Okay, so it just takes bytes and returns bytes. So that's perfect. Let's actually do this. We probably want a string because that's easier to store and show to the user. I'm not sure yet, but let's do a string. Strings are nice and safe. Can't go wrong with strings. Yeah, so let's do create fingerprint. Actually, I'm just finding out it's hard to type while speaking, especially when you're speaking something else than you're typing. So I might have to refrain from that. Okay, so we want the certificate here. Yep. And we're gonna return a string or possibly an error. I guess it's good practice to have some errors to return in case something happens. We certainly don't want to panic. Okay, so yes, from what I researched before, you have the complete certificate as bytes, raw bytes, in this field here. So what we can do is just hash that. So if we do for some reason the autocomplete gave up. Okay, it's back. So we have this function, and we're just gonna pass the certificate. And now to get a string out of it, we're gonna do the following. We're gonna just use format to turn it into a X string. We could use like base64 or something, but I guess it won't be a concern, as like we're gonna have to store this for every user, so base64 or something would be smaller in size, but compared to the size of a potential user profiles with all their posts, it doesn't matter. And given that no one will use the app, it matters even less. But let's try not to be that pessimistic. Yes, so let's pass the bytes here. Yeah, and return that. Okay, so I don't think you can actually get an error here, but I guess we could do this, and yeah, you cannot go wrong. So I guess I'm gonna remove this error value here. And what's the problem? Yes, should be. Maybe now it will be. We'll figure that out later. Works. Or actually, because it tells me I don't have the. Yeah, I do know. it told me I don't have the library in the Go mod file which specifies the dependencies, but I do. Okay, so now that we can create the certificate, the fingerprint out of a cert, now the certificate is not nil, so we can dereference. And let's save it FB for fingerprint. And let's do this. So let's make this big. And then let's do your fingerprint is, and another string. And let's see how it handles that. Yep, great. Perfect. So now we have this fingerprint, and we can store it in the database later. Yeah, so we probably want to test how middlewares work, because we don't want to do the certificate handling in every method. So we have this cert of thingy. Should I be able to click it? Maybe. Okay, so let's dive into the documentation to see. Okay, yes. So this is a middleware. So we're gonna see how middlewares work. Okay, so let's hide this for now. How middlewares work in this framework. Group. Okay, so this is perfect. So I'm assuming this middleware ensures that the person has the certificate, and this allows you to do this for an entire class of URLs. So we're probably just gonna do that for the user-facing area, but we also want to know how to write our own certificate, because we don't really care about the certificate itself. We want, well, it's fingerprint, but what we really want is the user object, but we don't have the user object declared yet, so we're gonna have to deal with fingerprints now. So let's try writing a middleware. Let me see if I can find. Okay. This is. Okay, this is basically what we want. Interesting. So it seems that because the way I originally wanted to do this is just have a certificate assigned to the account, and that's all. But what I see here is that they did, like, you actually create not only the account is bound to a certificate, but it actually has, like in regular web, it has a username and a password. And if you don't have a certificate with you, you can create a new one and log in with user and pass. And then that certificate is also stored. And I guess a question that one could have is, why don't you just use login and password and nothing else? It's because we don't have cookies in Gemini, which is great because it's way harder to track people and stuff, but it's also hard to do sessions. So basically what you can do is have one session per user on the server, and you can identify the user to get that session by their certificate. That's all you can do. And that gives you enough to make an app like this. Yeah, but having the flexibility of still offering user and password-based login allows the user to not lose their account with the certificate, and they don't have to move the certificate, I guess, if they want to use multiple machines. So it's nice that this framework offers this. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to figure that out, but that doesn't help us with registering. I guess registering would be like handled separately. Yeah, so let's handle registering first. Yeah, so I guess we got this done, so the next step would be to get the database. And what I like about Golang and its libraries, they are usually not really coupled that much, so you can just pick what you need. Like with web frameworks, often there's stuff that basically is all based on the built-in server. You know what? It would be pretty effing bad if I forgot to unmute my mic. Let me check that. Okay, no, my mic works. But what I did forget is to start music. Lol. Okay. Yeah, that's way better. The silence was quite overwhelming. Yeah, so basically with Golang you can mix and match libraries, and with web frameworks they are usually all based on the built-in HTTP server, so usually you can just use anything you find and you like. And yeah, this ORM of course is not bound to any framework. It's sometimes a little bit rough, but it gets the job done. I mean, I think it's as good as it gets with Golang, because it's hard to do a fully fledged ORM like in Ruby or Python when you can't do much dynamic stuff. Yeah. So let's get the dependency. And of course, I haven't used this in a while, so, and even if I did, let me look up how to do this. So we're gonna need a user model, of course. So once we have so the user is gonna have like a display name, handle, so it's gonna be like this at IRTH7. Here's me plugging my Twitter. So the handle on Twitter is basically that part after the @ sign. So this is the handle, the username, pretty much. And I guess what we're gonna need is a password hash. So that's also a string. And so what we're gonna need is also a way to bind the certificate fingerprint to the user. And we're gonna do that by having another model that describes the certificate by its fingerprint and binds it to the user. So we're gonna have to figure out how the relations are specified. Recently I've been working with Python and Flask and SQL Alchemy, so right now I'm used to that. But I've been told by the internet that it's okay to Google stuff all the time, so that's what I'm gonna do. Yes, so has one, now actually has many, because the user can have many certificates, as many as they want. I guess this is equivalent to what you have in Secure Shell, because you have this authorized keys file, and you can have however many certificates you want. Yeah, this is actually exactly like that. Hang on, I accidentally deleted stuff. This is the fun of using Vim. You sometimes press a random key and it does something and you have no idea what happened. Yeah, so we're gonna bind it to the user and have the actual fingerprint stored as a string, because it's easy. And okay, so you can do this. So I'm assuming there will be some helper function to fill that struct in. Certificates. All right. So this is all the database stuff we need, like all the models. Now we probably need to actually have the database created, because we're gonna use MySQL for now. Not MySQL, I'm sorry, SQLite, because it's simple, you don't have to do anything. So the SQLite driver. For some reason the music stopped. I don't know. Okay. Okay, so what we're doing, the database. Yeah, so let's open the database. We're later gonna refactor that all that out to different files and stuff, but let's keep it simple for the beginning. Yes, so open. I don't know where is my autocomplete. I'm gonna restart Vim in a while just to see. For some reason it started getting really slow. Okay, let me restart the editor. Get this one to be bigger. Hang on. Yep, that's what I meant. Okay, so creating the SQLite database. And then we also want to create the... Actually, let's just... because this just sets up the connection to the database. Okay, I forgot about this. Okay, so what we've done so far is created the database file. We also need to create all the tables in it. And GoRM has this nice feature called Automigration. It's not a fully fledged migration system where you can upgrade or downgrade. It's just like it just tries to make the database match what's in the structs. But for now it will do. Once we start making changes that require some more logic, like, I don't know, changing the format of the data in the database, we're gonna have to use something more powerful. but it's not hard to switch when the need arises, so we're keeping it simple for now. Yes. So yes, the certificate and the user are here, and of course I made a typo. So now we have a handle to the database. Yep, again, typing is hard while speaking. A certificate. Okay, got it right. So the third time. First. Yep, so let's start by having a register root. So here we should do, let's shut up the linter. Here we should have, for the register root, we're gonna have to, let me fix the music because it breaks all the time. Let me just do, open up OneCircuit's live channel. Yep. Okay, so what we need to do at some point, so let's just write that down now. We're gonna have to prevent request forgery, so we don't want anyone to force the user to register as some kind of username without the user's actual interaction. So we don't want to just get people redirecting to the register page and having stuff be done without the user's consent, but that will come later. We also want to do yes, the request forgery. Yeah, so for now we're not gonna handle the passwords. We're just gonna bind the fingerprint to the user, and we're gonna worry about the user and password stuff later. Yes, so the first thing to do would be to require the certificate. So let's try to get the certificate from the user, and if the certificate is not there, let's tell the user, actually not like that, we're gonna request it with the correct, we're gonna reply with the correct response type, which is client status client certificate required, which tells the client to maybe ask the user to choose one of their already created certificates or create a new one. So that's gonna be helpful to the user, and it's gonna make it easier to get on board of our website, because they're not gonna have to worry how to do that, because the client will just tell them probably. And we can, yeah, we need a client certificate to be present in order to identify you. Okay, and to use an actual template with some more content, maybe, or no, actually I don't think you can do that in the errors. Maybe you can. Yeah, so basically we don't want to be hard coding all of our sites of our views in just in strings, so we're gonna use one of the templating systems we have in Golang. But yeah, that's later. Okay, so if the certificate is present, we're gonna have to, I'm just writing to-dos to have like the skeleton of the, like a form of the function done, and then later just we can just fill it in. Yes, so for registering the user, if we have the certificate, we're gonna need to, I forgot what I was gonna to write here. So, well, whatever, let's do, yeah, okay. So, before registering the user, we need to check whether they have the account, because if they already have an account, then we shouldn't allow them to register the same certificate for another account, because then we're not gonna be able to differentiate between them. But we do not have the user database set up yet, so we're not able to check that. So once we can actually register a user, then we can have some users to test the checking. So we can. There's no point writing the check right now, because we don't even we are not. The user is not even able to register, so we don't even have a way to test it. So let's write it once that's done. And it's good to have keep a to-do there to avoid forgetting about this stuff. Yes, so at this point we can assume the user does not have an account, so for registering, actually we're gonna need the fingerprint anyway to check. So let's create the fingerprint here from the certificate we found. And now here we can create the user. So what we're gonna need is we're gonna have to request what the username, like ask the user what username they want to have. So for this, the Gemini protocol, I just look up the specification here, has that input status code, which makes the client request a line of the input. So let's test that. I'm gonna comment that for now because we're not gonna be using it yet. So if we do input, is it input? No, so let's quickly check. Let me quickly find a way to do this. Okay, so I don't think they have anything especially for requesting input, but we can just do this status thing manually. So let's try finding how to change the status of the response. We definitely can create an error, but that's not what we want. Okay, there's no content. I guess that's gonna be it, because this, if you look at the specification, it's just a status code without, did I even specify it here? Yeah, but basically all the status, this response looks like this basically. So for example 10, and then enter username, and that's all the server needs to do, so there's no content. So I'm assuming this is the way to go with this. And for the status, we're gonna have status input. Oh, this is also interesting. Gemini, besides regular input, provides this sensitive input type, so that basically makes the client not echo the strings that the user is inputting. So this is good for passwords and stuff, but right now we're asking for the username, so it doesn't matter. Enter your desired username. Okay, so let's test if that works first, and then I'm gonna explain what we're doing with that later, how to get that username. So let's fire up Lagrange a little bit bigger. So we're gonna register, and what's wrong? Oh, it's not running yet. No, it's not running at all. And we're waiting. Something is wrong, or maybe it's just compiling. It is probably compiling the SQLite driver, which can take a while because it's written in C. Yeah, as you can see. Oh, it's actually. Oh, yeah. It's compiling this SQLite binding, so we're gonna have to wait. So in the meantime, I'm gonna explain how to get that input. So if we return that status input, status code, the browser is gonna ask the user for a line of input. So once the user enters their desired username in the box that pops up in the browser is gonna make the same request, like to the register root, but in the query string. So after then there will be the username. So what we're gonna have to do here is actually, before doing any of that, we're gonna need to check whether the user has already submitted something, so the query string is not empty, and in that case handle the actual input. Okay, so we're still waiting for the compilation, so I'm not sure if anyone's there is the YouTube dashboard shows me that there is one viewer, but I am not sure whether that's just me in the dashboard or whether that's someone actually watching. If so, hello. If you say something in the chat, that would be nice, but that's probably just me, because I'm not sure whether it removes the dashboard. I guess I could use this time to explain what we have done so far and what we're doing again, in case someone's lost. We're making a Twitter clone for Gemini. Gemini is a very minimal web protocol. Like it's alternative to the HTTP protocol. It's an alternative. It allows you to do nice simple websites like that. The styling is done by the client. It's pretty much markdown under the hood, and yeah, actually it compiled. And we're making a Twitter clone for that. And it's basically it's made to be this simple to avoid bloat. Like the protocol is just not it just doesn't have enough features for the developers to be able to make bloated websites like we have on the web today. Okay. Yeah, I think that I posted the preview on the YouTube dashboard and the viewer is gone, so that was probably me. So thanks me for viewing. Okay, but we have the SQLite library got compiled, and now as we access the register, when we access the register root, it it requests a certificate, even though we have a certificate, and as I can clearly see right now, we have a bug, because here we request a certificate if the certificate is not nil. So if we have a certificate, we request the certificate, which doesn't make any sense. So let's fix that. This time it should be faster, yep. And there we go, we have the pop-up. And as you can see, once I enter my name, and press send, it just goes to that root. So register question mark my name. And to handle that, we're gonna have to, I guess, somewhere at this point, because we still want all these checks to run before doing anything, we're gonna have to check whether the query string is empty. Is not empty, actually. So if there's no error in retrieving the query string, and it's not 0, or actually I guess we could ignore white space there, so let's do strings string space. This line is getting a little bit long, but it's easy to understand, so it shouldn't be a problem. Yes, so we check whether the user has submitted something here, and if they did, and it's not empty, we can just, let's do it. We can handle this. So to do, and if the user hasn't sent us anything, because either it's the first time the user visits the root, or actually we can do that. Because either if the user hasn't sent us anything because it's the first time they visit the root, or because they just didn't enter anything valid, we just ask for the username, and here we're gonna just return hello, you're about to get registered. Yep, so yeah, let's get that. So now we don't need the else because we return here, so there's no way to reach this part of the function. Okay, let's try that. Hello, okay. So there is something wrong. Because we don't have any query string, so this is not supposed to be working. So let's do some debugging. Let's see what the framework thinks the user has sent us. And let's do a new line. Yep, let's see Q. And try again. Refresh. Okay, so this is, oh wait, okay, of course, another mistake similar to the one before. This should be larger than 0, or even not equal to 0, because we were ensuring the string is empty instead of ensuring the string is not empty. Let's try again. Yep. And there we go. If we enter an empty nickname, we get prompted again, which, you know, kind of makes sense. Later we might do some errors and stuff, like here, if we enter an incorrect username or something, but that's good enough for now. And yeah, so I guess, I mean, the stream is going for what, like over an hour now, so I think I'm gonna stop it here. I guess I'm going really slow, but I'm just getting used to this streaming thing and talking, and I don't want to really do too much today because there's this chance that I configure something wrong and this footage is unusable. And besides, no one is watching right now yet, so like this is just some warm-ups. This is a warm stream. I guess I'll begin the next stream by explaining what I have so far and be more prepared. So this is gonna be more interesting. So yeah, what we did today is like we got the fingerprinting done of the certificates. We know how to get that certificate. We started working on the registration flow. So yeah, we got actually most of our stuff that was planned done. So that's nice. I mean, it's work in progress. So I guess we're gonna pick up right here on the next stream. I don't have a schedule yet, but I'll figure that out. Because like in less than a week my university classes begin, so then once that begins, I'll have an idea when I have time and how much. Yeah, and I guess hope I see you next time. And goodbye.